The next one, formal versus informal education. What really shapes us? So this was my episode of Jonas. Again, I had fantastic conversations about education, fantastic conversations about the responsibility that we have towards educating ourselves. Yeah, it basically encapsulates my journey of this podcast because I'm trying to, for myself, build myself an extracurricular activity where it's like, okay, can I research these conversations? Can I research these professors? Can I speak to people in my industry or outside my industry or some where it's adjacent? Find commonalities, find lessons we both learn, share that for an audience, reflect on that, learn from that, grow. And so that's me, putting myself in a position to learn. And that was what this conversation is about. It's like education does not stop at uni. This idea that education must have an expiry date is ridiculous. Maybe because we feel about how education is presented to us, we don't really like it. I understand that. I understand that perspective where we don't like education, so we go, okay, no, this is not for me. And it's like, okay, cool, but I feel like there's so much growth to be done, and I think Jonas really, really touched on that really well throughout this whole conversation about the responsibilities on you. There are third places out there as well. There are other places out there for you to go out and informally learn, and I've been a part of some of those places, professionally, but I think, just going out and also just being in around these people, you find commonalities with them, you find interest in them. And it was really, really important to have that because, again, coming back to what we're talking about, the reliability is important. I feel like a lot of the people watching this are going to be like me and Jonas, who want to learn, who want to educate themselves. And so, finding someone out there who's doing that and sharing that human conversation. It's not to get too caught up in the abstract of it, but like the human journey of that. It was important. And so check out that episode. Next one, how we lose time without noticing. This was a conversation I had with Stephen. This was pretty recent, actually. So now we're getting to really recent. By the way, this has been all in chronological order. I did not say that to the beginning. So if you're like half an hour through this and I realize, again, this was such an important idea. We both said it in there. There is so much lost time, so much dead time, as I call it, that we get caught up in as a society. And I understand why. There's that boredom, there's that level of like inertia, where like life is just like, is not moving, it's just like, what are you going to do? And then we fill that time up with all these different distractions. And, everyone complains about doom scrolling, but it's like, we kind of wanted it. That's why these companies created it. That's why these companies kept pouring money into it, and do where it's gotten, because it's something we wanted. And I think you have to take agency in your life in order to stop that. And, going through with someone who very much like me understands that and very meticulously structures their time and tries to reduce as much procrastination as possible was an important discovery for me. I'm also learning. I'm also learning about some of the stuff that I, waste time doing, and about like, I think like as you get older, not even as you get older, as you continue to do stuff that you like, you start to see the dead time, you start to see the repercussions of the dead time, because you might put something out that you're not happy with and you go, wait, actually, if I took more time at this time beforehand, researching or beforehand, looking at these ideas and go over them, the product would have been better. And so like, if you really care about what you're doing, you start to look at all that time beforehand and be like, actually, what am I going to spend this time on? I think, that was an important lesson throughout the year. As it's going more and more, and like the level of quality is improved because I've had to kind of understand that about myself, that I really do care about this, that I really do want to succeed, that I really do want to bring you guys the best product, the best conversations, the best guests, the best research questions, the best productions, like everything. And so that means I have to pour more time into it. And so understanding how you lose that time, understanding the pitfalls, understanding the mental conversations you have with yourself about reasons why you waste time on all these things was super important, because you have to face it. You have to really look at it in the eye and really like face that part of yourself that wants to procrastinate. And and I think once you do that, you get some understanding out of it. You get some clarity and some direction and some motivation, whatever you call it. It helps you, get rid of all the chaff and, focus on the gold and move forward that way. Next one. Can art survive without capitalism? This is from the conversation I had with Shannon. And again, this was my most surprising conversation throughout the whole time. I can't remember what I went into. I think I went into it thinking, okay, we'll have a conversation about art. We'll have a conversation about painting, about how people can, figure out how to paint, about anime. She's a fantastic artist, by the way. I really like, again, sidebar, this is one of the things I really enjoy about my role, about my I couldn't even call it a job, but about this is that I get to meet people who I really admire as creatives, and just even just creatives, athletes, creatives, people that I admire. I get to speak to them, we get to communicate, and we become friends because we share a love of something, and then we respect each other. And I think having a conversation with Shannon, we had a long conversation actually, even off the podcast. But yeah, there was so much spirituality, there was so much wisdom that I wasn't expecting, because I sometimes I try to speak to the guests before they come on, but I'd limited for this one. But yeah, coming on and just showing me so much understanding of self, so much, like wisdom, like balance, perspective. It was, I immediately pivoted the conversation that way, and I think at the beginning of that, what she mentioned was the idea of like art, an idea of capitalism, an idea of like not letting it be pulled that way. And that's something I have really felt this year about why do you do what you do? I consider this art. I consider what I do art. I do create poetry. I do perform poems and stuff like that, but I also consider it as art because I think there's an art in conversation, there's an art in availability, there's an art in this kind of in-between stage where you're trying to understand what I'm saying and reinterpret it, and then you interpret it based on the context of what I've said before, and all of that is art. But yeah, how do you, take that and fit into a capitalist system, into a YouTube, which has got algorithms, into branding, into people with like a minute attention span? And that's something I've really tried to kind of understand and wrestle with. And especially on the social media platforms, I've understood like I have to give to take. I have to give some of the things that I think it's also to do with ego, just like, okay, like as an artist, what are you willing to give in order to get to the point you want to get to? And that's something Stephen helped me with, definitely having a conversation with him, but also Shannon helped me with by the other perspective, which is like, actually, you don't need capitalism. The bad aspects of capitalism is actually something that we don't want to encroach in art. Art is for the people. Art is forgiven. There are parts that I'm going to be like, yes, this needs to be produced in a way which can maximize his potential to reach as many people. But there are conversations I'm going to be like, I don't even care if anyone doesn't watch this. This is for one person who's going to really enjoy this, and I got to do one to do the other, and so balancing that and, extending my reach that could reach that person that it needs to reach. That's the conversation I've had to have with myself. Yeah, so this is a conversation that really helped with that processing. The myth of good AI. I don't even know what number I'm on, but I think I'm nearly there. The myth of good AI. This is the conversation I had with Dr. Arshan. This was one of my favorite conversations throughout the year. I think Dr. Arshan is such a brilliant idealist, like such a brilliant communicator, but such a great, I like taking ideas and like extrapolating them and like really like bringing them to earth. And this conversation he mentioned afterwards, it felt like a hip hop, but like a boxing match, where he'd throw it and I'll throw it, he'll throw it and I'll throw it. And I think it was super enlightening for me to kind of take that role and, like be the student, but also have my perspective on what we were talking about. And he was such an intelligent person that it was very, very easy to kind of like just throw these ideas out. And so, yeah, I think I 100% would want to do more of that. And like, the professor conversations is something I really I started this year. So that's been a big, big lesson. I'm trying to refine that, get better at that. There's so much production beforehand, there's so much like admin beforehand that I need to get better at. But even on the camera, having a conversation with them, understanding the role between being the interviewer and also being the student in the room, because I want to mimic the dialectic approach when it comes to that conversation where we're both we're both kind of like, circling around on ideas, and obviously they're the experts. So I want them to take the lead and, take us through these ideas. But I have to also be able to, bring it down so they relate to the person that's listening. Not like dumb it down, but relate to their experience. And, talking about AI, not from a perspective of like, technology, but also like identity, like what AI means for us as people. How do we identify with these things? How does that affect religion? How does that affect arts? How does that affect, all these things that we hold dear? So all these things that are still prevalent in my topic, in my channel, how do I take these ideas and bring it here and then have that kind of play? And I think it's something I've been getting better at throughout the year, something I've definitely been getting better at as opposed to last year. And yeah, I was really, really happy about how this conversation turned out. Last one, mental health, art, and the struggle to be understood. This was a clip from a conversation I had with Jasmine, and